Hello, everyone. It's My name is Asfi. I've been posting on LinkedIn for a few days about psxGPT. Basically, a way to like chat with financials on Pakistan Stock Exchange. So, look, I want to get right into it. I want to show you a demo instead of describing it. I've kind of described it enough. I want to show you what it does. Then I want to show you how to run it on your machine. And then I want to show you how to make it, refine it for your own use case. So let's get right into it. I'm going to share my screen, and now I hope you can see this. Yes, you can see this. So look, the first thing when this whole thing started, I had a simple goal, which was that I wanted to create a tool that basically lets analysts describe a table that's usually kind of painful to get, when you're doing it manually. Because as I taught financial modeling for a long time, and it's a pain, getting tables in a format that you want. Particularly, like when I like to build financial models, I like to see the breakdown of all the revenue items, so that I can build their revenue drivers well. And usually this breakdown is given in notes, and it's sometimes a pain to get that breakdown from notes. So the first thing I'll show you is how this tool pulls that. Now, the data in here is only for banks. I've taken 13 banks and their 2024 financials. It can be easily we can easily add more data, and I'll show you like how that works. But let's just run the first query, right? So, I mean, let's say I want to say, get me the unconsolidated profit and loss account with full breakdown found in notes for MCB Bank in 2024, right? Now, what's happening now is there's a so the program in the background, which you will see shortly. It's and the details of this program I've already uploaded on GitHub. I actually want to see if you're able to see those. Oh well, actually, so now you can see that it populated the income statement, and it gave us the breakdown, right? And so in that sense, this is sort of one implementation of this thing. And why I like it is, like, this is now a spreadsheet ready table that, if I were to copy this and I were to post this in a spreadsheet, this would just work. And I could have specified you know more more details, and it would have given me that. Now, what's happening in this implementation is that I'm using something called metadata to give more guidance to the model on what to search for. Now, this has some pros and cons. Pros are that it kind of gets a lot of guidance on what to seek. But then at the same time, the con is that, when you give too much guidance to a model, sometimes it gets lost when you ask for it something more creative. So for example, now I'm going to show you where it gets lost, right? Like if I say, get me the per sector lending exposure of HPL in 2024, this particular, okay, sure, let's do consolidated. This particular implementation is going to struggle because of the initial guidance that I have given. And if this is sounding vague, bear with me. I'll get down to exactly what that means, exactly which part is going to make this model struggle. We don't have to wait to watch it struggle. You'll see soon that it's going to struggle. But the similar sort of query see, it struggled over here. It didn't give this to me. But now in what I call simplified bank financial statement chatbot, here I am simply I've given it very loose instructions on how to query this index that I've created. So I'm going to pause here and just explain to you at a high level, and then we'll go into detail what that means. So there is this broader idea It's called retrieval augmented generation. But forget that for a second. Basically, like let's just talk about what is this program trying to automate. So while it's true today that you could upload a couple of one PDF, maybe two PDFs on ChatGPT, and you can kind of chat with it. But if you upload like 100 or 500, it's going to struggle. Now you would upload 100 or 500 because you wanted to give your program the ability to search over all this data. But in order for these language models to search over that data, you also need to kind of get them in a condition where this data becomes searchable. And there's a few different ways of doing it, which I'm not going to get into right now. But if you are sort of familiar with some of the higher level stuff, we basically chop the document. We first sort of convert it into a format that LLMs like, which is usually text or markdown. Then we chop them into smaller pieces. Then for each chop, which is called a chunk, we assign it some labels, which is called metadata. And then for each chunk, we assign it an embedding, which is basically like a whole lot of numbers called vectors. And that kind of acts as like a way to identify a chunk. And the reason these numbers are useful is when we put in a query like, get me the per sector lending exposure for HPL, what's kind of happening in the background is even these words are getting converted into all those numbers. And now it's trying to find the chunks that kind of match closely with those numbers in order to create an output for us that you're going to see shortly is basically going to give us that per sector lending exposure. It's a general, now this is sort of a general query, and the reason it's going to work on the simplified one is because we didn't give our program a whole lot of instructions on what to search for. Actually, I just want to make sure I am, wait, let me just make sure that when I share it, I am, simplified. Well, I guess I could share my entire screen. That's probably better. Let's just share the entire screen. Okay, anyway, it's fine. I think sharing the entire screen is easier, but look, so, it gave me the per sector exposure, right? Like for Habib Bank, chemicals, pharmaceutical by year, and also like further breakdown in debt securities and so on and so forth, right? Which the other model struggled to do. And that's because we didn't give this other model, very specific one. So this is like I would say a second kind of implementation. And in both these cases, I'm just showing you how to build a table that you can paste into a spreadsheet. Now, there is a third kind of implementation where we use something called model context protocol. There's a broader idea which says that, which is really the motto of model context protocol, that models are only as good as the context provided to them. And even if once I show you sort of once we get into the code and just see like how this program worked from the inside, you'll see that this entire exercise that I think us financial analysts really care about is just getting the most relevant chunks and feeding it into an LLM. Like today, if you use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever, and if you just paste the most relevant pages and ask it to give you an analysis on that, it's going to give you a good analysis, right? The challenge is like, how do you get this model to become sort of semi-intelligent in terms of gathering the right analysis? So let's try. I posted a little demo on like writing an equity valuation report, but like let's try something else, right? Like I want to say write an internal investment memo to Stanley Druckenmiller. So we've done enough of Warren Buffett. We'll try Druckenmiller. He has a slightly different investment approach, comparing MCB and HPL as investment opportunities by analyzing their 2024 profit and loss account, cash flow statement, balance sheet, and also per sector exposure. Now, if you have Claude Desktop and you haven't set up this model context protocol server, you're not going to see this little hammer, right? And this hammer has some of the tools. Again, if this is sort of sounding like gray, that's fine. Right now, I'm just showing you the demo. But now let's watch this thing, get into work, right? So it's it says, oh, so it says, all right, I'll help you create this thing. Like, let me start running some searches. Now, what's happening in the background is this program is, instead, like in the first two programs, I had written a bunch of logic saying, if a user says this, then go and search for that, and give it to me in this kind of an output. Here, I've given no context to this program on what the index is like, what the metadata is like. It's basically just going ahead and running these searches. It is, this the CTO at Hugging Face had a really cool definition of agents, where he said, like, an agent is an MCP client running on a while loop, right? Like, okay, well, I don't really want you to check my Google Drive, but anyway, since I'm unable, okay, well, it's let's see, it's saying it's unable to find. I'll have to probably give it more of a nudge, but let's see what all it comes up with, right? It is beginning to put together some info, but it was unable to uh, get me the financials. But I'm gonna give it a bit more guidance in the next turn. And this is kind of one sort of this is a bit of a surprise for me to see it not being able to pull in the financials, because I've not had this problem before. I do feel like, as far as the tools are concerned, maybe like it, because my MCP server is installed here. Okay, let's yeah, let's give this thing a bit more guidance. Okay, you can find the profit and loss account, balance sheet, and cash flow by querying PSX query index function. Try searching for 2024 and right. So this time, let's see how it does, right? Okay. So it's going to run, well, for whatever reason, it's not getting, okay, I think now it's beginning to get, I think it's gotten moving, right? Like, it could have been an issue with, this could have been an issue with like my index not having loaded. But I think now it's kind of found the index, and I think it's yeah, I think now it's kind of figured out. Or actually, like, so now it's at least found a way to like get the info which it was previously struggling to get, right? Okay, so now let's just let it sort of run. And this is kind of the interesting part, I guess, about like, I guess, agentic applications, because at least when we're writing like somewhat deterministic code, we kind of know exactly, where it found, or at least rather, when we're writing deterministic code, we're giving it much clearer guidance on, how to go from like point A to point B. Here, it's basically, I think it just kind of running into this while loop, searching for the most optimal context, given the kind of I've created. Okay, it's saying he's created in a memo, but I don't see the updated. What happened here? This is a bit annoying. Okay, okay, Claude misbehaved over here. So This is a bit of a disappointment. Okay, it is finding the results. Yeah, sure, try searching. The results are available. Okay, well, I don't need it for Bank Al Habib, but I'm glad you found it for HPL. Anyway, you know, sometimes LLMs can surprise us. Uh, I do think that, I mean, the way I've implemented this model context protocol server, I could do a much better job defining the tool. We'll get to that. But for now, let's just see what this agent delivers. I do think it's on the right track now in terms of searching. Okay, good. Now it's searching for HPL's balance sheet. The data is there. It is running the searches. Okay, all right. I think we're making progress. We're making progress. Let's just sure now get the sector exposure. Based on all the collected information. All right, finally, I think it got info, which is a bit encouraging. Had to give it a bit of a nudge. All right, confidential memo. All right, da 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 da. MCB offers stronger metrics, 1,400 branches, credit rating, blah 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 blah. Ownership by this, part of this. Now it found the information, right? Like, anyway, but I guess more importantly, I guess where MCP servers become cool is like, the high level instruction, it starts gathering, a report and insights. I'm still like not too happy with this report format. So I'm going to give it a bit more guidance. Okay, sure. It likes MCB more than HPL. Um, it didn't really get into like what kind of stuff Stanley Druckenmiller likes to see. Okay, I'm going to revise this report and make some tables as well of key financials, plus focus on the kind of criteria Stanley Druckenmiller likes to see. Okay, so all right, that's a pretty, I would say it's a B minus, it's like more like a C minus report. Let's see if we can get it to improve a bit. Okay, so I think we're getting somewhere now, right? Like now he's comparing the ROEs, he's comparing the NPLs, getting the operational efficiency. Okay, we're getting better, right? We're getting EPS. I cross-checked the numbers that this lines up with the pact that HBL and MCP had. This EPS looks right, so there's no hallucination here. It's picking up. Now it's getting better. Now it's getting better, right? It's comparing sector exposures, the different sector exposures for both the players and their NPLs. And okay, we're getting better. I want to do one last, and I want to get into like how you guys can run this thing on your machines, because I think one sort of very key thing that's pretty key, when we're working with LLMs is we want to see sources. So what I'm going to do is, okay, I guess Claude got stuck over. Come on, just don't get stuck. All right, sure, okay. A smaller 1 to 2% in HPL could be considered. Okay, but it still likes MCP more than that's fine. Yeah, sure. Druckenmiller likes these things. I think it's getting better. Revise this report, but please include sources of chunks and file names where you gathered the data used, right? Because And this is a sort of, I think, pretty key when building these RAG-like applications, because we want auditability. I mean, as like financial analysts, we really care about being able to see the source, right? So yeah, okay. So now I'm happy with this, right? Like it's giving me data sources. It's saying MCB Bank Limited annual chunks. Like this, I'll show you shortly where these are. Like this is literally like the annual for 2024, and it's certain chunks, like 180. Like these are chunk numbers that are getting referenced here, and that's kind of really useful because we can very easily go from these chunk references to actually show you actual PDF pages where these things were taken from. And now we have a decent report that is talking about metrics like capital adequacy, NPL, advance to deposits. It's a more meaty report with sources. And despite the initial hiccups, I guess these things are pretty effective, right? So yeah, some structural cost advantages, kind of things we like to talk about, Okay. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to stop sharing this now because I think the next thing I want to do is I want to actually make sure the stream is still running. The stream is running. Okay. I want to now show you how to run this thing on your machine, right? Because I mean, like, so my sort of one complaint with open source projects is that, they're kind of open source in name, but then you don't know what to do with it just because there's a GitHub code base, right? Like I've put the code base on GitHub, but I really want to show you, particularly if you are like not if you guys are not if you're well, this whole thing, this whole initiative is for like people who are like financial analyst types, like that's what I was, Microsoft Office user who now want to use more powerful tools, like build software so they can communicate with the world more easily. Okay, so how do you run this thing on your machine, right? So let's now do that. Now in my let me like share my let me share the entire screen again. Okay, so now in this repo, I've given a lot of if you go to github.com, iShaheen, whatever, you're going to see a fairly detailed README that describes in a lot of detail how you can get this thing running. But like underneath it, I've given more instructions for beginners, right? Like how to choose a code editor. Like really, to get started, you need to download one of these things, right? Like now, I prefer Windsurf. You can use Cursor, you can use Client. There's like 100 of these. And to get started, right, if you go on Windsurf, or let's say, I mean, if you go on, I'll show you Cursor, that might be sort of easier, right? Like even if you don't have Git installed, you can start this whole process by saying clone repo, like this little button here, clone repo. And if you just I'm not going to do it on my machine because then it'll just create another one. But if you just sort of paste the GitHub link of this psxGPT, what's going to happen is that all the files that are over here are going to get copied on your machine. And you're going to end up with looking at something like this, right? Now, when you start this thing, and again, all these instructions are given in the README, you're not going to have this Gemini index metadata folder. You're going to need to create this metadata by, you're going to need to create these embeddings. Basically, you'll have to run the code in step 6. And I'll shortly sort of walk you through what this code is and how to make it. Also, for each of these files, like, from step 1 to step 8, in prompts.md, I've written the high-level prompts I started with to write this code. I think prompting by itself is not enough. It's a good idea to know kind of, how. I think here it's kind of worth sharing just one take on like, code in general. It's like, I think what LLMs have really done is they've like solved the syntax problem for a lot of people. Like syntax is basically like, knowing things like this, right? Def split into chunks, pattern equals this, chunks equals that. Like if you can write an Excel formula, frankly, you can do programming. But I mean, I think for a long time, like looking at this kind of a screen, it just felt intimidating. Now it does not, because, we have LLMs that can like really simplify things for us. But really, you need two things to get started. You need to run this file. And before you can run this file, you need to create a .env, which is an environment file. And the only thing you need to get started is you need to get an API key. Now, if these things are hurting your head, that's kind of part of the deal with programming. Some of it is going to hurt your head. But, you have to kind of enjoy problem solving, or like, I mean, for me, this feels like fun. This feels like a video game. If it doesn't feel like that for you, it's probably not going to be fun. But yeah, oh no, not this one. Wait, yeah, this is so this is the Google Gemini API key. This is basically the only sort of API key you need to, once you go here and you sign up, explore models in AI Studio, you click on that get API key. It'll give you an API key, which you will then paste here. Don't copy my API key, but I don't think you will. But anyway, paste it in your .env, and then when you run step 6, it's going to take a while depending on your computer and the pace of your internet connection. It's going to create this Gemini index metadata. Once that's created, then you can run step 7A, and step 8 to basically play with this whole demo thing that I showed you, right? 7 and 7A will create the simplified ones that get you the table. Gradio is a very nice library, that kind of helps you make these front ends really quickly. And I think while we're on that, I just want to talk a bit about the dependencies. Dependencies, in Excel terms, it's like borrowing logic from another spreadsheet. It's basically what it is. So Playwright, this is a cool one. I'll show you what this does shortly, right? Basically automates browsing for you. So I'll show you the first thing that we do in this whole code is actually just automatically downloading financials for a given year and then labeling them properly. Llama Index was very helpful in terms of converting the PDF into Markdown very cleanly. Now, there's lots of different ways to do it, which I tried, which I've referenced in the README too. But this Llama Index embedding parser for the Markdown version worked really well. Gradio is the front end builder. The Python.env is just to run it's just environment variable management. And PyMu PDF is also something that lets us do just go through PDFs. And MCP is Model Context Protocol that we'll get into shortly. But I think now I'm hopeful you have a sense on how to run this thing. And if you don't, honestly, the easiest thing is like you copy this README, you go to like Cursor or Windsurf or whatever, and like let's say you have this repo cloned. If you can't get it running, just ask even if you're using a free version, right? Like just say like paste the repo and say just help me get this thing running. It's gonna get it running for you. It's programming really has never been easier. But I don't want to do that now. I want to get into the meat of it, right? Like how do we make what's like if I wanted to start. Okay, so we right now just have data for 13 banks, and that too in just 2024. If I wanted to do cement, if I wanted to do other years, how do I do that? So now we're going to kind of get into the code, all these Python files. So if you were only here for the demo, this would be a good time to check out. But if you want to see the rest, This is, yeah, I guess this thing is still working. Good. So if you're still around, some of you are still around, so I'll continue recording. Step 1, download PDF. This is the first piece of it, right? So now the way it's about, it's about, I think, it's about 500 lines of code, but again, what's this going to do is it's going to use Playwright to go on this psxGPT, PSX Financials website, and it's going to start downloading financials, right? This is basically what it's going to do. It's kind of cool to watch, how it. I don't have time to go through like every function. In any case, if you want to understand this file, it's probably best to just paste parts of it in an LLM and just ask it to explain things to you. But like, anytime you see def, that's basically defining a function. Think of that's not too different from like, when we would like put together a bunch of logic to, let's say, calculate the minimum balance of a running finance facility or the depreciation schedule or something. It's just that, but put in a more general purpose programming context. So I'm not going to go through each piece of logic, but I will. I do want to say, you might be wondering, well, how did you know how to use Playwright? And here, honestly, I think a lot of I've been doing this now. I've been sort of just learning to code for 2 years now, and I think it just comes down to when you kind of persist a bit, you learn some words. This is a really nice line by Terence McKenna where he said, "The world is made up of words, and if you know the words the world is made of, you can make of it what you wish." So like there's no way. I mean, you can ask an LLM question that, "Hey, I want to do this," and it might suggest some things to you, but then over time, you'll also sort of start getting a sense of anyway, let me show you like the model visible. Hey, there's too many of these trues. Yeah. So hold on. Script success. Yeah. So look, let's just okay, search. We're gonna do, just to kind of demonstrate, right? Like I'm gonna do cement for a while, for now, right? Cement in 2024. I'm gonna run this, right? Cement in 2024, and I am going to open another window so I don't, and I'm just gonna say Python 3, step 1, download PDFs.py, right? So what's going to start happening is it's now going to the PSX website, and now it's going to start finding it's going to start running through the logic of like, finding some of these reports, right? For cement, where, so, it's already found. Now this is, so it's already found the annual and quarterly. And like, I guess what I like is, as an analyst in the previous days, right? Like I'd have to go on the website and, look for Attack Cement and then deal with their awful formatting of how they've labeled the files. Here, it's just coming neat, organized, Gerard Cement, Best Way Cement, blah, blah, blah. And like, there's one setting which I've not enabled here, but, had I enabled it, you would actually see it, like the browser popping up and then it going and clicking and then it kind of bringing the reports. It's always kind of cool to see. But we're just gonna stop this now. We don't need to. I don't need to like download all these cement files. But I guess it's as simple as that, right? Like, I just changed the search keyword. You could have put a different target here. And this utility in step 1 is something that can like let you programmatically download any set of financials from the PSX website and label them, right? Cleanly label them like this, right? Find that useful. Now, that's step 1 in building this PSX GPT. Step 2 is like, once we have these PDFs, that's That's not good enough. We need to now convert them into Markdown. Markdown looks something like this. Actually, these are the chunks. I'm just going to show you like, yeah, this is what Markdown looks like. It's a format. It's like this format with like some hashes. It's a format, right? And there are lots of different libraries that are out there that can help you go take your PDF and convert it into Markdown. Also, why I kind of settled on Markdown, because all these LLM chatbots like ChatGPT, etc., like it's like when you see them render a table, when you speak to them, they're rendering it in Markdown. So plus, I mean, I think I found that because it's a probabilistic, anyway, I have a theory that because we're dealing with probabilistic models where they're just kind of guessing the next token, forget that actually. Markdown is a much more forgiving format for the LLMs to deal with than, let's say, something more structured like JSON. So I like Markdown. And once you have those PDFs, in step 2, I'm using llama parse. Now you can get a free API key. You can parse up to, I think, 1,300 pages. No, 3,000 pages. But then after that, you need to pay, or like you try another sort of method, right? But basically, once you run step 2, you are going to end up with files like these, right? No, not this one. PSX PSX bank markdown. You're going to end up with that, yeah. And so in all these files, you can see that I have like a there's an input directory and an output directory, right? So PDF directory is this one, and the output directory. This has gone too big. The output directory is PSX bank markdown, right? So PSX bank markdown. If I were to do it for cement, I'd make cement. But I'm not going to do that right now. And then the step 3 is then chunking those markdowns. So, I mean, this is a very short. This is a simple piece of logic, but basically all I wanted to do when I chunked it in my output directly, which I called PSX markdown clean. In PSX markdown clean, all I did was I wanted to kind of combine some of the chunks. I wanted there to be like a minimum length for the chunk, and I basically did not want there to be like very tiny chunks, right? Like earlier, like as in, so I put in some logic that at a minimum chunk should be this size, and I put in some logic around that they should just combine if there are like a couple of headings just right next to each other, that they kind of combine it. And so you end up with chunks like these. And this kind of then takes us to step 4, which is, I think, one of the most important pieces, which is metadata tags, right? Like, and I used a lot of different techniques, but ultimately what I settled on was that I basically, what I'm at a very high level, what I'm doing in step 4 is I am running chunks in batches through an LLM. And I'm saying to the LLM that, look, go through the chunk and then assign it metadata where, see if it's got a financial data, yes or no. See if it's got financial statement scope, whether it's consolidated or not. Is it a statement, yes or no? Statement type, profit and loss, cash flow, blah, blah, blah. And basically like create like these metadata tags. Let me show you what they look like, right? This is what a metadata tag looks like, right? Like this allows, if you recall how Claude or like the model context protocol was searching over this index, it was using these tags. So these tags are like very useful. It kind of acts almost like a signpost for the LLM to say, I could find this thing here, I could find this thing here. And so but now it's interesting, like I really struggled with this step initially. I tried to write like deterministic logic on how to pick these metadata tags, and I really struggled with it. And eventually I just concluded, like I mean, like something like Gemini Flash 2.5 preview is actually free right now, and there's so many really good LLMs that are free right now. Just stick them all in, and out comes these tags. When I did generate my tags, which comes in output metadata, this is kind of how they came out. I realized later that there's a bunch of other sort of key elements that I had not included, like things like whether this is annual or quarterly. But luckily, my file names contained a bunch of information, which I then used in step 5 to basically combine. And this PSX markdown clean was the result of the combined what's it called? Let me show you yeah, let me show you it. Wait, PSX markdown clean. Like, this is not PSX. Wait. No, this is not it. Wait, I'm getting confused here. Output directory was PSX bank metadata. Yeah, okay, PSX bank metadata. So here I kind of combined, right? Like the filing period, the entity name, the filing type. Basically, like, think of it like almost like a headline on every page of the PDF that's letting a computer search, right, for certain keywords. And then once I'm happy with so before this, right, like if you wanted to just completely repurpose this, like, to make the system internally or something, you can literally just like, instead of working off these PSX financials, you can just upload your own PDFs, and just in convert PDF to markdown, just change this directory. And then, you can just sort of change directory names, follow these steps, and you'll end up with a very similar tool. And finally, you come to create embeddings. If you're not familiar with what embeddings and vectors, they sound like painful words, but I'm going to show you what they look like. Embeddings, vectors, right? Like hopefully I can see they're basically like a lot of numbers. Yeah, it's kind of what embeddings look like. And all that means is that it's just for every little chunk that you see like this, there are like, in this case, I think it's 768, like 768 numbers that are associated with this chunk. And that codification helps us locate these chunks. So once the embeddings are created, after that, we've kind of gone through the steps, right? Then we basically run the Gradio app. I mean, well, okay, actually, one word on the Gradio app, right? Like, so the first one with filters, right? This is the longest one, right? And the reason it's so long, this piece of code, is because I've written a bunch of logic on guiding the LLM to say that, look, if you see this kind of a query, then let me show you so there's written a bunch of logic on like how to extract the entities. Like, if somebody writes, get me the annual for Mizan, that it then can kind of look at some of those relations and say, okay, Mizan is Mizan Bank. And if someone says, get it for me for the last 3 quarters, there are like some periods or detections that I wrote, right? And it was an interesting experience going through this whole exercise, because I found that, while so much specification, and even, here I even specified like exactly how I want my table to be, it created a useful tool to get those tables in the format I wanted. But then all that specification also meant that this kind of code would not be very useful to create a more general purpose application, right? And so, which is why in this 7a, I basically use no metadata filtering. I basically just say, look, you configure the setup, initialize the index, and this is just a saving function. This is just basically saying, when you run the query, forget about metadata filters, just get the top K, or like top 20 or top 25 chunks based on query complexity, And that's kind of what's happening, right? Like, so one of the key pieces in this um, whole program, and something you should also look at when you are building something for yourself, is this retrieved context folder. So in this retrieved context folder, okay, I guess this is where it kind of went crazy because Claude was running all of these things. Okay, okay, that's too. God damn it! Wait, yeah. See, so there was a yeah. So this retrieved context, what it's doing is I've written some logic saying, hey, whenever a piece of code is run to deliver some kind of an output. Uh, God, this is not. Yeah, like get me the profit and loss account for UBL with full breakdown. Then this shows what were the chunks. So this was chunk number 307. What were the chunks obtained? And this is pretty key to like see how this sort of logic, which is picking up those chunks, how is it performing. And so I mean, initially as I was kind of working on this thing, in fact, even initially how I kind of figured out that my chunking logic was bad or my metadata tags were bad is because I was paying attention to this retrieved context output. I was saying, because I know as a human what is the uh, context needed to answer a particular question. I have that knowledge, especially as far as financial modeling is concerned, right? But and so I can make some calls here and say, I'm not getting the right context. And so as I kind of started building this thing a few weeks ago, it was like, I'm not getting the right context? I kind of dug in deeper. And this kind of, I guess, a more larger point here, right? There are lots and lots of these low code, limited code, auto rag, you know, tools out there, right? Like stick your promises. Oh, just stick your PDF in. Now you can chat with all of these. I found a lot of them to be letdowns because I've not been able to like really dissect them, right? And again, is if you are a serious financial modeler, you should know that like unless you can basically alt tut the crap out of a spreadsheet, you don't really know what's going on, right? You can't really have confidence. So you can't really have confidence in a RAG application if you can't exactly see what's getting pulled, why is it getting pulled. And so seeing each format allows you to do an evaluation on the code that you've written. And then if it's not performing, you can then think about it, right? Okay, it's not performing maybe because the parsing quality of my source document wasn't good enough. It's not performing maybe because the chunking I did, the logic isn't really setting. And it's not performing maybe because the metadata tags that I use are not really reliable. And there are many other sort of reasons, right, along the way. That's kind of what my hope is with this open source project. Why make it open source? Because I want to see if experimentation will happen. If it doesn't happen, I don't really care. I'm going to still keep building it. But like, some of you start messing around with it and share your perspective on, hey, this worked, this didn't work. I think that'll be interesting. Ultimately, I think I don't think there's any. Also, I mean, from a purely commercial perspective, I don't think there's any competitive advantage in like hiding code. um, I've seen so many remarkable tools come out, and then like 2 days later, the open source sort of community just completely copies it. So I don't think that holds any sort of benefit. Um, I currently haven't quite decided exactly, what sort of future holds for this thing. Right now, this is for me right now. This whole PSX GPT thing it's fun. It's interesting. I do think that like right now you saw we did a bunch of work and we've done some work for banks. I do think it's like it's quite straightforward to go from here to a solution where we've uploaded all financials for all sectors, and now we can like make something like this Claude desktop available to customers and just say like go crazy, go have fun, right? Like do analyses that we had struggled with, right? Things like compare director reports of like all the cement companies and see who's giving what kind of guidance and where are they aligned and where are they not aligned. uh, and I mean, my god, like it's kind of it's limitless, right? What we can do. So yeah, we're kind of approaching at the hour. I hope it's not been a monologue. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna see if there are no questions. But anyway, it's look, if I hope this was helpful. I think it was helpful for me to kind of go through it. I am going to keep chipping away on this thing. I really love financial modeling. I think I'm now 42. When I started my career, I was told, oh, like, you should stop being an analyst. You should do more higher value added activities, which I did. Those basically meant sitting in a boardroom with lawyers arguing about CPs. I think that work is crap, frankly. Well, not crap, but that's annoying work. It's not for me. It became very clear to me as I worked that I don't want to be a manager, and I don't want to play that whole corporate game. But I love being an analyst, and I taught financial modeling for a long time. Then I stopped because I wasn't convinced that my content was adding value. And even at that time, I knew that moving beyond Excel and like really kind of harnessing these general purpose programming tools is going to be needed. And so now that I've done some of that, someone told me, like, I should run like a course. I was like, I don't want to run a course because I think courses are also not useful. You are given these idealized conditions. Like my financial modeling course, it gave you these idealized conditions. You put in a bunch of formulas. You thought now you know how to do it, but like none of our work as analysts is idealized, right? Like, I am glad, Sushil, that you would love to mess around with code. But look, these are not idealized conditions. So, which is why I want to take like a different approach here, which is saying, I don't want to do some course for you, but I want to keep building out this PSX GPT thing in public. I'll share updates. I'll do live streams at some point if I feel like we've reached like a nice little juncture. And in trying to make something genuinely useful, which people can use and like get real benefit out of, I think there's like much more reliable learning there. And to use a cooking analogy, like, so I mean, I cooked a lot of food 2 years ago. And it's like you only get good, you really get good once you cook, once you get into the kitchen. You can't just watch cooking videos and get good at cooking. And the other analogy is like, which goes back to the whole, oh, but can you use this pre-made software? I mean, it's like, some of you are okay cooking with shan masala. I'm not. I want to, kutify my own masalas because, I kind of do. And I guess in this case, like, we don't really have a set recipe yet, right, for like what great tastes like. And so I think, particularly when it comes to these financial RAG applications like PSX GPT or some versions thereof, I don't think I've not seen something that's like really cracked the code on like how the whole experience needs to be orchestrated. And so I think, and plus, I mean, I think with the LLMs, it's so straightforward now to actually get down to the source, to get down to the core, and write the and again, Python is not even that low level a language. I'm just saying, like, stick to the Python level. And yeah, I mean, try to minimize dependence on third-party services and build your own tools. Because the more you build your own tools, like two great things will happen, right? One, I think your immediate organizations will benefit. But I think the second bigger one, which I'm excited about, which is what speaks to me a lot more, right? Like, see, like as knowledge workers, we inherited these golden handcuffs when we got good at Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint and Word, because the problem with that was, like, while it got us promoted very quickly early in our careers, we could only communicate internally, which kind of sucked because we couldn't communicate with the world, right? Like, but and this is like frankly a problem as a Pakistani. It really speaks to me. Our currency is problematic. It depreciates a lot. We all know that, right? A lot of us want to earn in dollars because it's relatively stable, right? Dollar has its issues too, but it's still better than the rupee. So I think I think this learning to code and learning to basically just express your creativity on the web and not just through slides and Excel files, it can help you and me earn globally over the internet. And I think that's exciting. So I think there's a lot of reasons to learn some of these skills. And yeah, the more you mess around, the more you'll find out. So thank you, and I am accessible on LinkedIn, on Twitter, wherever you want to send a message if you have a question. But yeah, mess around and tell me what you think, and would be most interested in experiments anyone's run and says this worked better or that didn't work better. Anyhow, hope you're enjoying your Labor Day as I am. I'm going to call it quits, and we'll see you next time if I do one of these.